On June 12, 2023, Capcom held a showcase detailing more information on their upcoming games, as well as revealing some new ones. During this presentation, Shu Takumi had a segment talking about Ghost Trick, which was releasing a remaster later that month. Most people know Takumi as the creator of Ace Attorney, but he was also the mind behind Ghost Trick, which is another murder mystery game where you play as a spirit trying to solve several murders, including your own. After unveiling the demo and briefly describing the game, the presentation transitioned to the next topic, and Ace Attorney fans prepared to put on the clown makeup once again. Until...
Objection!
A brand new trailer was unveiled, revealing that the 4th, 5th, and 6th games in the Ace Attorney series were being remastered for modern consoles. This was a huge deal, because with the recent shutdown of the Nintendo eShop, the only way to acquire the 5th and 6th games in English was through the mobile ports, which were not that great. But now, they'd all be released together in early 2024 as one package, and that package was given the title of the Apollo Justice Trilogy. After my very normal, insane human reaction to the announcement, I noticed that some people were confused or complaining about this title. After all, Apollo is only the title character for one of the 3 games. Doesn't it seem like a stretch to name the entire trilogy after him? Well, after some thinking, I've decided that no, it's really not that much of a stretch at all. And I'm here to tell you why. To start off with, let's simply look at the numbers. Excluding DLC cases, across the 14 cases of the trilogy, 7 feature Apollo as the protagonist. Phoenix is the lead for 4.5, and Athena for 2.5. God, that is sad. And even if we do factor in the 2 DLC cases, Apollo still comes out on top. This means that we play as Apollo in more cases than anyone else in the trilogy. But aside from that, Apollo is also the only character who feels like a prominent figure across all 3 games. A common complaint about the Apollo trilogy of games is how disjointed they feel compared to the original trilogy. This is a fair point, as the addition of the spoiler rule, a rule where games cannot spoil previous entries in the franchise, prevents most plot elements from building on each other outside of their respective games. However, I actually think the 3 games do provide a cohesive arc for Apollo despite this. To elaborate on what I mean, let's briefly go through each of the games and discuss Apollo's character in them. To do this, I'm going to need to discuss the details of what happens in these games. So, spoilers for Apollo Justice, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice. If you'd like to avoid these spoilers, skip to this timestamp on screen. Apollo Justice is, ironically, the game in which Apollo has the least character. This isn't to say he lacks personality. In fact, I found him rather delightful. But in terms of an arc or any sort of growth, it was severely lacking. He has no reaction to the crimes of his former mentor, and he has little to no agency across the entire game. He just kind of does whatever Phoenix wants him to most of the time. When the game ends, it doesn't really feel like Apollo has changed from the person he was during Case 2. Which leads us into Dual Destinies. I know we all like to meme on Edge Apollo, but honestly, I think this was an incredibly sensible and interesting direction to take his character. During Apollo Justice, Phoenix never really treats Apollo with respect. Apollo has a bond with Trucy, yes, but you never really feel like Phoenix trusts Apollo or really values him outside of being a piece in his chess game. So when Apollo's childhood friend, Clay, is murdered, and he has his suspicions about Athena, I honestly believe that he would leave to find the truth himself. After all, he's learned very well over the course of the last game that anyone can betray you, even those you trust and hold close. But at the time, Apollo was so desperate to find the truth because he wanted to believe in Athena. He wanted to trust her, which is why he had to find out who the killer really was. His development over this game is honestly better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Finally, there's Spirit of Justice. This is definitely the game Apollo has the most plot relevance in, being directly tied into the story with his connection to Kurain, and him being the one to eventually dethrone Garan. A lot of his development in this game does revolve around Dirk, but it also ties into something Apollo has sort of grappled with this entire trilogy, and that's his relationship with Phoenix. We've seen it go from mostly non-existent to fractured to healed, but this game is when we finally see it flourish. In Case 2, when Phoenix puts his trust in Apollo to save his daughter and the office, up to the final case, where Apollo defeats Phoenix himself in court, we see him not only earn Phoenix's trust, but prove that he is just as capable, if not more so, than Phoenix himself. This is the thread that I believe ties the Apollo trilogy together. Apollo, from his introduction, looks up to Phoenix greatly. And perhaps, after playing the first trilogy, most players would as well. Apollo starts off as a screechy, anxious little bundle of nerves, but over the course of the games, really grows into his own. In Apollo Justice, he is a means for Phoenix to reach his ends. In Dual Destinies, we see some differences in his philosophy to Phoenix, and how he's willing to go against him and distrust those close to him if it means getting to the truth. And in Spirit of Justice, we see Apollo overcome multiple hurdles without Phoenix involved at all, one of those challenges being Phoenix himself, until finally the two can stand side by side in court, not as a mentor and apprentice, but as equals. The final trial of the trilogy is when Apollo has finally, both as a character and by the narrative, earned respect. I'd love to go even more in depth into this kind of character stuff, but I'll save that for if I ever do a full analysis on these games. For now, the point is that this sort of cohesive character arc just isn't present in anyone else in the trilogy. Athena doesn't come in until Dual Destinies, and she's only really relevant in that game. Phoenix is present in all three games, but he lacks the cohesive character and arc to really feel like this is his story. He's pretty stagnant in games 5 and 6. Don't get me wrong, that isn't a complaint. I think dedicating a whole other trilogy to Phoenix as a character would be a bad idea, but it also means that naming the second trilogy after him really doesn't make much sense. Apollo, although it's not quite as obvious as Phoenix in his trilogy, is still the most prominent and developed character across the games, and, in my opinion, far and away the best character for its namesake. And that is why I think this name is actually a lot more justified than most people give it credit for. Do I actually think most of this was intended by Capcom when they were naming the bundle? Honestly, probably not. I just think it was named that way because they can't call it the Phoenix Trilogy 2, and Athena wasn't a viable candidate either. But I also think the title is far from unfitting, and I hope that now you can understand why. Thanks for watching my first proper Ace Attorney video on this channel. I really wanted to make this, and with Capcom having just dropped the new trailer, I had to sit down and talk about it. Speaking of the new trailer, oh my god, I am so obsessed with this art. It's gorgeous and they all look so good! Anyway, I'll almost certainly be making more videos on Ace Attorney, so if you have any specific topics you'd like to see me cover, leave a comment and let me know. And let me know your thoughts on the Apollo trilogy as well. I'd love to see what other people are thinking. Until next time, thanks for watching.